what's your journey been and how did everything lead to you being at Gemini?
I've been officially in crypto for the last 4 years, having started my career back in 2022, leading again what was a really fragmented European market at that point, starting to build operations and build businesses in the region. But when I saw the opportunity for Gemini to scale and grow in the region, that to me was a huge, big move for me. And I've been really excited to go on the journey with Gemini.
But how would you specifically describe the current state of crypto?
I think it's an exciting time. Companies like Gemini really solidify their position and build a foundation that's scalable across Europe, whereas previously fragmented regulations have meant it was difficult to kind of build a product to support.
Which kind of ones have been more of your successful products? Is it more of your staking, or do you find spot trading? What kind of things have people really showed you that a lot of engagement for?
Each product kind of attracts and is used by people in different ways. And so we've seen people who want to use staking, who've held assets on their platform for a number of years and are looking to get that yield on the back of it. And so it's attracted that user base who are passively investing in the crypto market. But then we've got those more active traders who are looking to use our spot exchange and our perps so that they can take advantage of what happens in the markets on a daily basis. And those more active traders become involved there. Those who are trying to look at their allocation of crypto across their entire portfolio, they now have the ability to do that within Gemini.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Block of Fame, the HubSpot for CXO level happenings in Web3, powered by the Voice of Web3. Today, it is an absolute pleasure to have joining me Mark Jennings, the head of Europe at Gemini. Mark, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So let's start by, getting to know you a bit as Mark. So I understand that you formerly worked as the COO at Kraken, and you've gone on this journey to be part of Gemini. So what's your journey been, and how did everything lead to you being at Gemini?
So I joined Gemini in December of 2024, specifically to take up Europe's head of Europe and kind of lead our business here on the ground. At a really exciting time for Europe, which was MiCA being rolled out. The opportunity to be able to build and scale the business for Gemini here was a huge opportunity for me. I've been officially in crypto for the last 4 years, having started my career back in 2022, leading again what was a really fragmented European market at that point, starting to build operations and build businesses in the region. But when I saw the opportunity for Gemini to scale and grow in the region, that to me was a huge, big move for me. And I've been really excited to go on the journey with Gemini. I really joined crypto back in probably 2018, 2019. Having worked in the US, having worked across Asia, I realized traditional financial infrastructure isn't built for scale, and it is hugely difficult to do anything. And so that was what piqued my interest, seeing what was happening with some of the L1s at the time. I recognized that was the way forward. And so had to figure out how I join the business, how do I get involved and help push it further.
Amazing. And so, yeah, in those 4 years, similar amount of times that I've actually been working in the space, how has your perspective of the industry changed? Since you've been involved in Gemini, have you seen things develop a lot, and also while you were at Kraken?
Look, I think when you take the ethos of why Gemini started, and the founders built a business to be able to make it, crypto a safe and secure way for people to be able to hold their digital assets and be able to buy and sell them as well. So for me, when I joined 2021, 2022, regulatory environment in Europe was just getting started. There was no real regulatory environment across the US. And so it was a very difficult place to try and scale. Particularly Europe was quite a fragmented place. And so trying to do that in multiple jurisdictions in Europe was difficult. And that's why we were so excited to see MiCA come through, because it gives you a foundation on which to build. But there was a huge amount of interest building at the time. And I think, building safe, secure way to see how people can involved themselves in Web3 and crypto at the time was a big driver for me. And I think we've seen as the kind of crypto market has scaled over the last number of years, those who are playing a positive part in kind of supporting the regulatory environment, but also giving people, high quality products and services. That's where ultimately, the benefit of regulation has helped crypto develop over time. And I think we'll see that to continue as the regulations bed down and businesses start to grow.
Yeah, yeah. I think as I mentioned to you earlier, like I would transition to Dubai, but mainly actually because I wasn't too sure what was happening at that time in Europe, especially in the crypto world. So it is interesting to see things actually developing and changing extremely fast in Europe. But how would you specifically like describe the current state of crypto in Europe as we stand right now?
I think that it's an exciting time. I think we've seen, particularly across users in Europe, number of them were waiting for regulatory certainty before they became involved in the space. And so MiCA has played a key part in that. It's also allowed companies like Gemini really solidify their position and build a foundation that's scalable across Europe. Whereas previously, fragmented regulations have meant it was difficult to kind of build a product to support that. I think we get to a point now where we can look at, now that the regulatory foundations are in place, we can now move forward in terms of building innovative products, start to deliver on what we already have achieved in the region, whether that's tokenized equities, Gemini perpetuals, staking products. They're all adding to, the need for the customer base that's there that wants to become more involved in crypto and Web3.
Yeah, and within the last 12 months, obviously you've been expanding a lot within Europe. So what kind of jurisdictions have you been expanding in, and which countries are like the high priority of where you want to move into the next phase of expansion?
So we'd always gone with the reasoning that we asked for permission first. And so we previously were licensed across a number of European jurisdictions where we were able to, engage with customers and grow our business there. But what we've got with MiCA now is that Europe has been opened to Gemini as a whole. And what we want to do, we want to focus on is very focused on the localization factor. So how do we engage in markets like France and Italy and Netherlands in a way that works for the users in those countries? So we want to be able to support them in their native language, and we want to be able to offer them innovative products that they want to engage with. So we view Europe as a market in which we would like to grow and expand. But what we're doing is taking a measured approach to each country because we understand it's not a one size fits all. There's many languages, many different banking platforms to engage with. So from that side of things, we're trying to take a very considered approach and engage with each of those countries directly and expand our presence there once we find that we are serving the customers in the right way. So we look at it as kind of building that foundation, making sure the product's right for growth. And then in that case, we can then engage local customers in those countries to really grow. And I think that's a key differentiator in Europe, where, it is a very multicultural environment, and it's one that we want to make sure we're a part of.
For sure. And you've mentioned MiCA quite a few times. It's one of the most talked about regulatory bodies in crypto. But as a company that does have MiCA approval, how difficult kind of is it to innovate as well as being able to follow compliance and stay committed to regulatory growth?
Look, I think compliance to me is what opens up, it opens up the market to us. And so we now know what those guardrails in place are. We know what the regulations look like. So it allows you to build and scale with more certainty rather than understanding, not having an understanding of what the future space looks like. It can be very difficult to build a roadmap that brings you out 12 to 18 months if things may change in 12 to 18 days or weeks. So for us, it gives us an ability to start to really focus our time and efforts and being able to scale. I think it allows for more innovation. We know what's inside, what's outside of the scope. And so again, uncertainty doesn't lend itself to opportunity and growth. And so I think this is what's helped us in the space. Decentralized finance has stayed outside of that scope, and that is an area that now continues to grow. And I think over time that will become more and more apparent how Gemini as a centralized exchange under MiCA is part of that broader ecosystem, and we can help, build and grow on that innovation. But when I look at it, Gemini's in a place now to become, you know, a central asset class like crypto has become over the last number of years. And so we become part of people's everyday financial infrastructure and financial thought. So that's where we want to go. And I think this has allowed it to happen. We've done it first ahead of the US, ahead of the UK. So I think we set a benchmark that they're now trying to kind of improve on and move towards as well.
Yeah, I think that is the key thing about regulation is it does bring in a lot of mainstream as well because it allows people to feel a lot more comfortable. And as you say, you know that things aren't going to change drastically over a short period of time, which absolutely helps to plan things. But with Europe having MiCA, do you find that it is kind of like the standard for crypto regulation, or is there still a way to go that it needs to keep up with something like VARA or in the Middle East? Do we think that maybe these bodies need to come together and work closer together? I mean, the UK as well. How can there be like a centralization between all of these different bodies?
I mean, that's kind of the challenge of finance as a whole. And I think, you talk to each region, they have different priorities, different regulators, and different ways of doing that. I think what MiCA was the first step in setting a benchmark of what things should look like. And then we saw very quickly, the Trump administration coming in, they followed very quickly with legislation on the crypto side of things there. And we see that the UK is now pushing towards having their own crypto legislation in place because, again, it aids having that certainty, having a clear understanding of your kind of train of direction. That will help people. So I think what Europe did was set the tone, and this is what we want to do, how we're going to achieve it. And they managed to bring 30 different jurisdictions together to do that. But I think we'll see over time the US, we'll see it happening in Asia, we'll see it happening across, like VARA in the UAE as well, that regulation is constantly iterating, and crypto is a very nascent market as it applies to like the broader financial markets. And so it will evolve over time. We'll see different countries applying different priority focuses, and that will grow from there. So I don't think it's it's not just a one and done. We'll move on. It'll continue to innovate, still to iterate as well. And on the back of that, then it becomes part of the broader financial ecosystem.
Amazing. I think that definitely does give some excitement to the space as well, because I remember the times that everyone was so concerned about regulation in our industry. And I think now understanding how positive it can be is actually makes it more exciting for the growth that we can now see as an industry in a more of a regulated manner. And I read also that you've launched UK and EU staking just a few months ago. And also EU derivatives after you secured your licenses for that. That's pretty big move in the crypto space within the region. So how exciting is that for Gemini? Do you think really they're being at the forefront of bringing this to the region?
I think, look, it's hugely exciting to be able to launch perpetual futures, tokenized equity, staking, to give us this well-rounded crypto offering, particularly across Europe. I think it's been missing as a kind of one-stop shop like Gemini is able to offer. And so we've been able to tailor our products and bring it to not only those who are starting their journey and looking to invest in their first crypto, but those who've been in the market for the last number of years, want to be able to stake their ETH or Solana, want to be able to hedge the risk using perpetuals, and then want to add to their portfolio by investing in tokenized equities. So, we've spent a lot of time investing in getting this license across a MiCA license and a MiFID license. And because of that, we're built to be able to scale on the back of that. I think it's taken a lot of time. It's taken a lot of planning. It's certainly taken a lot of man hours to be able to do that. But we're in a position now where we have that portfolio that people are able to pick and choose which products they want to use to be able to tailor it to the wants and needs of the users. So we feel like being first to market to be able to offer this comprehensive portfolio is a differentiator for Gemini, and again should be the foundation for us to be able to scale in the region.
Yeah, that is truly exciting to be the ones really pushing in the EU all of these different types of products. And just out of interest, which kind of ones have been more of your successful products? Is it more of your staking, or do you find spot trading? What kind of things have people really showed you that a lot of engagement for?
So again, it because crypto has a number of different types of users and there's people on various parts of their journey. Each product kind of attracts and is used by people in different ways. And so we've seen people who want to use staking, who've held assets on their platform for a number of years and are looking to get that yield on the back of it. And so it's attracted that user base who are like passively investing in the crypto markets. But then we've got those more active traders who are looking to use our spot exchange and our perps so that they can take advantage of what happens in the markets on a daily basis. And those more active traders become involved there. Um, and then when you look at what tokenized equities has done, crypto now becomes part of people's broader portfolio. And so instead of just looking at that market in isolation, it brings in financial markets as a whole. So people have a portfolio rather than just managing one part of their investments. So I think that's been a big differentiator for those who are trying to look at their allocation of crypto across their entire portfolio. They now have the ability to do that within Gemini. So, we see that each of those products are attracting a different user base. And so ultimately help us work with people no matter where they are on their journey in crypto.
Very interesting. And yeah, for me being from the UK, or I kind of still consider myself being European, even though we're out of the EU. But when I was living there, I did find this kind of resistance against crypto, and there was a lot of barriers in place. But how are you finding now that Europe is receiving crypto? Is there a lot more positivity? Can you see like the EU really adopting this mindset of like a future currency and a store of value? Do you think that's starting to resonate with the people themselves?
I think so. I think if you look at some of the measures that we've seen over the last number of years, legislation is one piece, but when you see traditional financial institutions becoming involved in the space, it will tell you that they also see what the future of finance looks like, and that is within digital assets. Over the last number of years, stable coins have obviously been the use case that most people have talked about and has been able to accelerate not only the payments infrastructure, but banking infrastructure as a whole. We see the number of announcements over the last number of years of stable coins specifically targeting the euro market and how that can help advance, Europe as it tries to grow on its digital asset journey as well. So all in all, I think people now recognize this is something that they should be paying attention to. It is what the future of finance should look like. And so again, this is why Gemini exists, is people who are becoming new to that journey will come to us because of the number of, or the 10 years we've been in this market, the fact that we've always looked for permission in terms of launching a business and going that direction. And so we can be that trusted partner as we take them on that journey. And when you see where people are becoming involved, you know, more and more in the UK in particular, 24% of all users in the UK own crypto at the moment. That again shows you that it's a growing market and will continue to do so. So I think people now see the fact that regulation is in place. They now have kind of those, trusted routes that they can take to start to invest in the market.
Yeah, because I think the fundamentals of the banking systems within Europe and in the UK, it really is like kind of the pinnacle of the countries. Everyone looks to their banking system. So it is really changing that mindset as well. And as you mentioned, tokenized assets too. It's something new for people, but it is a big narrative in our space with, stocks, bonds, real estate, all these different things being tokenized. What specific industries do you see a lot of growth in terms of tokenization?
I think, look, tokenization has allowed us to, implant what is a more efficient way to transact. And that's how I see tokenized platforms helping not just specific asset classes, but the broader financial ecosystem. When you think about, equities, we tokenized equities earlier this year. What it's allowed people to do is to be able to take their equities on chain. It's transparent. It's very clear where and who owns those equities. And so for me, that's removing what is that kind of archaic infrastructure that supported equities previously. But it gives ownership and responsibility and to those people who hold those equities. They're not looking to large third parties to hold it all together. And I think that's the democratization of financial ecosystem, which is what crypto has done over the last number of years, is it allows people to take ownership, people to be very transparent in where they hold things, where they own it. And ultimately, that's what tokenization can do. More broadly, though, what I see is, it's very clear if you hold a Bitcoin in your wallet and your Bitcoin wallet, that's yours. And I think this is what tokenization will allow us to do, is very clearly define ownership, be able to give people the ability for them to control what they want to do with their own assets. And that's really, really key in terms of how financial infrastructure should build. And it will also then help with those underlying mechanics that support most of these big markets, which are difficult to get access for the everyday investor like you and I. And so being able to democratize that by giving it access to everybody who has a wallet that they can access and has an internet connection to do that, that's hugely exciting, not just for crypto, but for financial markets as a whole.
Yeah, I think it truly is just revolutionizing how we operate currently. And I think people really do need to see that bigger picture of this is about the future and how things are changing. So it's exciting to hear that Europe is actually embracing that and going on this journey as well. And then in terms of Gemini, what would you say success looks like in the next 12 to 24 months for Gemini within Europe?
Okay, I think 12 to 24 months is it's a short time frame for anybody. Yeah, Gemini, Gemini's view has been, we're not here just to be a 10-year-old company. We're here to be here for the next 100 years. So what we look to do is to try and build and scale our business in a way that keeps us here as a 100-year company. So I think, look, the next 12 to 24 months is people scaling businesses now that we've been able to secure MiCA licenses and grow from there. We'll continue to iterate and improve kind of the UX and work on how we engage customers that side. We'll continue to grow out the product suite that we offer and kind of grow on what we've delivered so far in 2025, which has been impressive to date. And I think that's how we look to kind of continue to innovate in this space. Crypto it continues to scale and grow at a very quick rate. But I think that's certainly replicating its position within the financial ecosystem. And so as we continue to grow and people's allocation towards crypto grows, we'll see businesses scale with that. So I think it's hugely exciting. If the last 12 months for me is anything to go by, there is a lot of opportunity there. And there's a huge amount of growth that we as a business will look to kind of scale, and we'll work with our customers to do that.
Yeah, and in terms of partnerships within Europe, how important is it to, connect with exchanges, fintechs, traditional banking world? How important is it for you to kind of collaborate and partner within Europe to ensure that you are achieving this growth?
It's important. I think it's important when you look at, how we've scaled some of our businesses in the US, and we've partnered up on the credit card side of the business there to really scale on that side of things. What we're trying to do is we're trying to kind of lead the way in crypto, and Gemini has been in this position. We want to continue to grow our position here in Europe, but that means that we are, implanting ourselves into what is an existing financial infrastructure. So we will work with banks and we will work with the existing fintechs because we're showing them what crypto can do for their business. We think stable coins will improve those payment mechanics, and we think that the L1s that are there will improve payment services for others. We think banking infrastructure can improve if they utilize crypto as their means and methods for investing. So overall, we see that is how we will grow our business, and we will look to those partners who trust in us because Gemini has taken the right steps in growing our business. So once we see those trusted partnerships grow, again, the benefit goes to the user who's able to access their crypto assets. They're able to invest in a more secure way with us. And so from that perspective, partnership is huge. I think we'll see that happening. We'll see that continue to grow over time, as traditional financial infrastructure and those institutions see what the path forward looks like for that.
Yeah, for sure. And something that I think most of our listeners are going to be excited for us to explore a little bit about is kind of politics behind within crypto as well and how they interlink. So obviously everyone's pretty aware now of how crypto and politics are entangled together. You see it in the US. But are you finding within the EU that there are any particular governments or leaders that you find to be more pro crypto or who you think would help to accelerate growth in Europe even more?
Well, look, I think crypto has become it's a bipartisan subject in both I think when you saw the lead up to the US election, it was a position that was supported by both parties. The current administration has been pushing legislation very quickly as they joined. And so we see that lends itself to, again, being able to push crypto forward and be able to grow it as a kind of a financial ecosystem that people need to see. Across Europe, we can see that most of the regulators who are there, they were able to agree on what MiCA is and be able to implement that. And I think they see the benefits of, this technology being able to help accelerate what it is they can do. And so we see all governments are all trying to, bring crypto to their local jurisdictions. They're looking for businesses to come and work with them. And we can see that, we've engaged with a number of regulators over the years, and each of them are looking to support crypto. Again, they see the benefits of it to not just their country and the businesses that come and work there, but also to the citizens of each of those countries. They benefit from being able to utilize what is, crypto assets that will benefit them not only in their investment portfolio, but also when they're looking to utilize stable coins and cross-border payments. Again, this is the future of financial infrastructure. And I think these governments see that as where they need to invest time, efforts, and their own energy. So we see it as a positive move. And I think, again, politics shouldn't play a part in it. I think they all see positive signs and pushing regulators to be able to, put the rules in place to allow businesses like Gemini grow in Europe, as we've done over the last number of years.
Yeah, for sure. And as you mentioned as well, the US, obviously the Winklevoss Bros, they were we had them at the Bitcoin conference in Vegas, and they were very much supporting obviously Trump's political campaign. We had JD Vance in speaking at the conference, and you could tell how great their relationship was. So it's obviously evident that Gemini has it likes to support certain political boards. Is this something we might see in Europe potentially?
Look, I don't think Gemini supports one political party over another. I think we support pro crypto political parties, and that is something that we wanted to kind of get behind. I think in Europe, it's a different political environment. Each country, has their own regulators, but then they have kind of a joined up regulatory framework for crypto. But I think every country, and originally being from Ireland, there was a lot of investment with the tech companies back in the early 2000s, and to the benefit of Ireland, they set up their locations there and pushed it forward. I think that's what is required from governments to recognize where there are opportunities for them to engage with companies to be able to build and grow. And so, I would say that as different governments across Europe see the changing technology infrastructure that supports finance and what crypto is doing for that they'll recognize that as an opportunity for them to invest time and efforts as well.
Yeah, I think that's very, very well said. I do think it's more just people actually having an understanding of the industry, and it's not just about politicians, but it's about the whole governmental bodies are actually appreciating what companies like Gemini are doing, and you're following all of the regulations out there. You have the licenses to prove that. So I think that's what makes Gemini so exciting. And going beyond, the typical conversations about price action of crypto, what key trends do you really see in crypto or Web3 that you think are the most important and maybe people don't discuss enough?
I think, look, for me, when you look at how it becomes involved in people's everyday life, I think that's what we as a crypto company are looking to become involved in. I think we see it as the future of finance. And so, how do we engage where people utilize crypto and stable coins to pay for everyday goods and services, to be able to invest in the long term and see, what is a more efficient and scalable infrastructure to support everyday payments and investments. I think that's where it's really important. And we're seeing a lot of innovation taking place in the space, reducing or increasing the number of transactions that could be processed, reducing the cost to the end user. But also, when you take staking into account, how they contribute to be able to, you know, be part of that infrastructure that supports the financial ecosystem. And so, I think it's a more involved uh, financial infrastructure. I think it's a more involved space for people to do with their assets what they want to do, and they're not limited by the opportunity that's there. So for me, I think it's really interesting to see what's been built, but also, as that continues to grow and we see it become more and more part of people's everyday, that's when you'll really start to see the growth on the back of it. And, I think when you see, some of the broader payments groups becoming now taking kind of crypto or taking payments on chain, that's really interesting to see. Now, they're not now working against us, but they see what this is the future of it, and so moving towards it. So, I think that's where we'll continue to see exciting things happen in the space. And, Gemini wants to be, at the forefront of that in Europe. And that's what we're here to try and build a foundation and scale the business accordingly.
Yeah, hitting the mainstream markets, I think, is probably the most exciting for all of us that work in crypto. Because when you actually see people being able to use something you're involved in, is just way more exciting than I think people can even imagine. And then in terms of institutional adoption, obviously on the news, you hear a lot about institutions in America more than anything kind of adopting crypto. But how are you finding that in Europe? Are a lot of institutions at least interested in listening, especially post MiCA, to what's happening in the industry?
Certainly, I think institutions across the globe, and the US is one that's probably more prominent when we see the BlackRock ETF being referenced and the size that it's grown into. But we've seen ETFs and ETP, similar products in Europe over the last number of years. And so that has been operating before BlackRock's ETF went live. I think they see that, again, it's what their customers are looking for. They want to be able to engage in this space. They want to understand it more. How do we custody assets? How do they trade assets? And, the challenge is crypto markets are 24/7, which is not like your traditional financial infrastructure. So these are challenges that they haven't had to face before. And so on that side, we continue to see them engaging. And a lot of this is trying to understand, how do we as Gemini help them on that journey, providing custody for them, the ability to trade, and it's safe on and off ramp from their kind of fiat assets, and how does that work? So we continue to see that become part of mainstream finance again. And so we'll be on the journey with some of our trusted partners to do that. And again, it becomes part of people's everyday investment portfolio.
Yeah, hearing those words really does excite me because being from a TradFi background, I think then the world's actually merging together and being able to do amazing things is just, yeah, really exciting and why I really got into this industry. So seeing that transformations, I think, is really special for so many people. And in terms of, we've spoke a bit about your journey, but you are the head of Europe for Gemini. So I think you might be able to give our listeners a few key tips of helping to build high performing teams. So What kind of advice would you give to people listening of how, you can build those teams and how you can have a great workforce that are happy but driving forward, especially with innovation?
Oh, well, I can speak to my own journey, and a lot of what has worked for me over time is having just the ability to say yes when there's opportunities that arise, when there's things that need to be done. What's worked well in Gemini, and it's come from the top down, is we're always looking to become involved. There's always responsibility and ownership and trying to take and drive things forward. And so, what I've always tried myself on is just asking the questions, trying to figure out how do we attack this problem and take it forward, find that solution. Because that's ultimately how Gemini was founded. When the founders were wanted to buy their first Bitcoin and recognize how difficult that was, and then having to store it somewhere, it's what Gemini was formed on, the basis of making it a simple, safe, and secure way to invest in digital assets. So for me, it's always trying to push things forward, trying to challenge what is status quo. How do you improve it, make it more efficient? And ultimately, having people along the way who challenge you, who all want to kind of drive and push things forward, is what's made, my time at Gemini so exciting, and something that I've really thrived in. But over time, you've got to have some resiliency. And so the crypto winters that we've been through has allowed us to then build and relaunch and come back again. And I think it's important. Gemini's been around for 10 years, and not all the companies in crypto can say that. So it's important about, building strong foundations like that allow us to continue to grow and build on that. And having a really strong team around you, people who challenge, who have different viewpoints, who, we don't all have to share the same view, but we all have to kind of target the same end goal. And that's how we plan on getting there. And that's what's been really great about working here.
For sure. And for you, I mean, being so important in the European Web3 market at Gemini, what do you think are some of the common mistakes that people make when they're trying to enter into Europe, and how can they kind of rectify that?
But the key for us to try and become involved in the Europe market is that you need to know your market, and you need to understand how you're tailoring your product to meet the needs of your customers. Europe is 30 odd countries. They all speak a number of different languages, and they have different banking infrastructure that supports them. So it can't be a one-stop shop and a one-size-fits-all for the jurisdiction. You need to be able to target those customers, be able to offer them language support in the language that they speak, be able to offer them banking infrastructure that supports who they bank with in those countries. And so making sure we're localizing for each of these countries is key. Understanding that we've had our business in the US, you know, the same parts of those business don't translate directly into Europe. And so that's where we, on the ground here at Gemini, have been looking to engage directly, work with local customers to understand what they need, and be able to iterate and kind of improve our product and grow on that further in order to serve them. So that's what we see as worked really well, and that's what's been part of Gemini's ethos for operating in the countries.
And would you encourage people out there that have maybe established businesses here in the UAE, or in America, that Europe is a good market to enter into, and that people should be excited by the European market?
Absolutely. I mean, Europe is 500 million people. There's a huge number of users in the space. And I think the fact that, we look to embed crypto as part of that ecosystem here in Europe is really exciting for us. I think as a marketplace, it's been open to innovation. It's been open now that regulation is in place. And I think we'll continue to see us working with our customers and continuing to grow the business here. I think, again, over the next number of years, as regulation beds down and it improves and iterates, it'll become a space that becomes kind of top of mind for people when they're thinking about investing in their financial future. They want to come to a platform like Gemini that's got that kind of trust for them, and take them on the crypto journey with that. So I think that's an important part of our ethos here, and it's an important part of what growth in the region will look like.
Yeah, for sure. And for you personally, would you say, or what would you say is the biggest lesson you've kind of learned while trying to scale Gemini's European footprint?
I think you have to question everything. I think that is a key part of how we do that. I think we need to listen to what customers tell us. And so we build and grow on products based on what we hear and the feedback that's there. But also, it's a different region. And so sometimes you've got to diverge your product from, the US and make sure that we're focused on serving the customers that we have here. My big learning is to keep you questioning what is the perceived norm and how that changes, because crypto's changed so much over the last 4 to 5 years. What works and what happened 2 or 3 years ago is a very different place now. And so you need to move quickly and you need to build quickly to support that.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's kind of why I gave the 12 to 24 month time frame early, because things do develop so quickly. Like it blows my mind if I think back a year where we were sat. It was the conversation was so different then. But for you at Gemini in Europe, what are you looking forward to most in the coming, let's say, however long time frame you want to talk about, and what should people at home be most excited about?
Look, I'm just excited to get in every day and keep pushing and driving forward with the team that I've got here at Gemini. I think it's a space that allows us to continue to grow. We think outside of what is the norm. And I think that's what crypto has done really well. It's trying to innovate, it's improving things. And ultimately, the beneficiaries are not Gemini, but it's the user base that underlies that. And we're just helping them on that journey. So for me, it's really exciting to see how we can scale, how we can continue to work with the Gemini brand and make sure people know who we are. And for me, the most exciting thing is being able to continue to deliver high quality products to our customers. And so we want to expand and grow that further. And so that kind of keeps me awake every day and keeps me up every night. But it's the thing that gets me out of bed. And so it's a really exciting journey to be on for.
Well, Mark, you've actually given me a lot of positivity considering the markets in Europe, because yeah, sometimes I do feel a bit out of touch of what's happening there. I do believe so much in crypto. Unless you're on the grounds and you're actually seeing things happen in these locations, it's really hard to know what's going on, because I can see it from my frame of where I am here. But it is going to be so different of what's happening. So it has really been insightful to hear everything you have to say about the European markets in terms of regulation and what you guys are doing to be a big player in the space in Europe. So thank you so much for your time. It honestly has been absolutely incredible. Yeah, I really, really do appreciate it.
No, appreciate your time. And thanks again. It was great to speak about all things crypto. So look forward to hearing more.
Yeah, we absolutely love it. This has been an episode of Block of Fame powered by Voice of Web3. I hope everyone at home has had such a great time as well.